Is cherry picking worth it? Yes, cherry picking worth it? 100%. In fact, I'm going to read this quote that I got from Google Gemini. Hi, my name is Levi, and I've been an Uber driver for a little over 5 years and 13,000 trips. Okay, is cherry picking worth it? I think this is a great conversation because cherry picking, well, first let's define what cherry picking is. Cherry picking for most rideshare drivers, whether you're doing Uber or Lyft, is the idea of sitting in your car, parked, watching rides come in and declining the vast majority of them, somewhere between 9 out of 10, if not more, waiting for the best, most profitable ride. And if you're a passenger, what does that really mean? That means drivers are parked, waiting, declining rides, waiting to see a surge. And they're not necessarily causing the surge because a surge happens when there's a high demand for a ride and a low supply of drivers. But what happens is a lot of drivers will start to just take rides, accept everything, have a high acceptance rate. And the drivers that sit around parked, then what will happen is some of that demand will be met, but there'll be, again, more demand. And the drivers that were parked waiting for surges will be able to get the surge. And there's a lot more nuance to it than that. And I don't want to get too much into it. But the idea is cherry picking worth it? And the reason why I want to discuss this is because it sounds really profitable, and it is, no doubt. And I do recommend picking the most profitable ride that you can. But two friends of mine started to have this debate on X, Matt and Tristan. Matt is a co-host of a show called Drivers Coast to Coast. It's on X every Monday night at 7 p.m. It's live. It's great. Totally recommend it. And Tristan has a YouTube channel called Future Rideshare Millionaires. And they were debating the value of priority mode. And so what Matt did was say, look at my numbers. And you can look at his numbers. He was extremely profitable, 50 something bucks an hour. And he posted it on X, basically saying that priority mode, the idea of basically accepting lower paying fares to get a lot of fares in. So you're no longer cherry picking in priority mode. You're trying to go for volume of rides. And he was like, look, I made good money not doing priority mode. And maybe tongue in cheek, maybe not, but it was kind of like a jab at drivers that do priority mode. Around that same time, and I don't know what happened first, the chicken or the egg here, but Tristan had posted this idea of like, hey, if you are a rideshare driver and you use priority mode on Lyft, that could be a good thing because it's not a bad thing. And he was like, just because a driver will tell you it's a bad thing doesn't mean it is. And so if you're not in the Uber, Lyft, sphere of online Reddit threads and Facebook forums and X threads where people start to debate these things, basically I want to say there's two camps. There's the larger camp, which is the cherry picking mode. And what their claim is like, hey, you can make the most profit per hour by being a cherry picker. And the other camp, which is smaller, but it still exists, or maybe it's larger, but maybe not in the debate mode, but there's more of them, would be the idea of people that are like, I'm just going to take every single ride. Give me priority mode. I can just get more rides in. Now, the question is this: which one's better? And I think there's no right answer. I'm going to give you some examples here, and I'm going to give you my exact data to prove this. Okay, the first is the cherry picking driver. What makes the cherry picking driver really smart and savvy? It's because they drive the least amount of miles, they make the most amount of profit per hour. Their ability to basically strategically park their car in a great spot and just hit decline, decline, decline until a high paying, profitable ride shows up. That's really smart. That's a super smart thing to do because you can have the most profit on a per active hour basis that you possibly can get. I don't think there's anybody disputing that particular thing. I like that. And I personally drive like that a lot. But there are some problems with this mindset in that it assumes there will be a cherry to show up during the time that you're online. And That's just not always the case. There will be times when a driver is online and they can wait for hours and no Cherry might show up. Now, there are solutions to that. You can multi app, you can do Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, you can do other apps during that time. I think a lot of really smart cherry pickers are working on other things. I think the really good cherry pickers live near a place that surges a lot. They might be in their house. They're watching Netflix, just decline, 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 waiting for a high surge to pop up right on top of their house. And it's amazing and that's good. But some drivers like me, I have to drive 20, 30, 40 minutes, an hour sometimes to get to places where there are surges. So I'm actually sitting in my car potentially sometimes parked waiting for a surge. And the challenge is, how are you productive during the time that you're not taking rides? Because if you're sitting in your car or you're watching Netflix or you're doing something, you're not making any money. Now, a cherry picker that's really good will say, well, I made money during the time I took the rides. And that's true. But now let's talk about another type of driver. So the cherry picker is like a surgeon. I think the priority mode driver, the ant per se, is almost like a sprinter. I'd say a vast majority of Uber and Lyft drivers turn the app on when they can because they have another job, they're doing something else, and they're trying to make as much money as possible during the short window in which they can drive. For me, when I first started driving, that was basically when I was working full time. So I was working 40 to 60 hours a week as an accountant at the company that I worked at. And I would Uber drive on my way into work and I would Uber drive on my way home. I took my 40-minute commute and I turned it into an hour, hour and a half. Now, could I cherry pick during that time? No, because I'm driving and I'm really just looking for any amount of revenue that I can generate on my way into work. That was it. It was nothing more than that. If I made 20 bucks, if I had a ride for 40 bucks, 5 bucks, it didn't really matter. It was all opportunity for me to some extent. And so I just took almost every ride. As long as it was going in the direction that I wanted, and there's tools within the apps potentially to set that up. But yeah, I just took the ride. Instead of me driving all the way into work and getting to work early and waiting, I just needed a little bit of money to do that. I think a lot of the sprinters are people that like, I just need to make $100 tonight. I need to put $100 in cash in my account tonight. I have a bill to pay, whatever it is. And these are the type of people that don't drive a lot. Again, looking at the cherry picker is someone who maybe has like a part-time job or they're full-time rideshare drivers. They have a lot of time, or they're going to drive really late at night when the surges are taking place. They have flexibility in their schedule, where a lot of times the sprinter, the soonest I can make $100, the better. Now, a cherry picker will say, you can make $100 really quickly cherry picking. But again, that assumes that cherries exist in that short window when that person wants to drive. Let's go back to the example that I was using. If I got a chance to go out and drive when I first had my full-time job and I did rideshare, I definitely wasn't going to drive from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. That a lot of surges take place in a lot of cities across America between that late night time. I had to get up in the morning and go to work. I didn't want to get up in the middle of the night, drive into the city, work for a couple of hours just for a couple of cherries, and drive back home. My sleep schedule, it'd be unhealthy. It's not smart to do that. But on a Saturday, I had Saturday morning from like 10 to 3 o'clock, those 5 hours. There's no surges in the city of Syracuse almost ever on a Saturday from 10 to 3 because there's a lot of drivers like me that are out there. But could I earn $100 during that time period? You bet. It was pretty easy. It's a 5-hour window. It's $20 an hour in revenue. If I could just turn it on, accept everything, $5 trips, $10 trips, whatever, it's a quick way to make $100. And it's not going to disrupt my schedule as a full-time worker, my sleep schedule, or anything like that. So those are two camps. Today, and I'm going to show you all my numbers. Today, I am a hybrid of both because I drive in a seasonal place. Now, I'm a full-time rideshare driver today. I do somewhere between, I don't know, 30, 20 hours when I'm really slow and bored, and I'll drive as many as 70 hours on a super busy week when I have to just drive a lot of hours. So let me pull up all this data and kind of walk you through it. What I want to do is I want to compare these 2 weeks. So look at February and look at June. The goal for me, now I'm like a marathon runner. I do both. I do cherry picking and I do basically times when I'm an ant. I take it all. Look at these 2 weeks. So my goal every week is to basically earn around $1,000 in profitability. And so I just happen to have these 2 weeks that I thought were really almost identical. So in February, $1,300 when I was cherry picking. I had a lot of surges. It was great. My acceptance rate went down and I did 81 trips. And almost all those trips, I'd say 40 something of those trips came on this day right here on Friday. And this day I work like a 12-hour shift of the online. So these days were kind of just like whatever. They were just extra. Whereas this week, I'm working every single day. And even though this day says 448 days on this Thursday, that's because I got this bonus of 150. And my acceptance rate went up. I was accepting as many rides as I possibly could. So in February, it's high surges. I'm getting a lot of rides. This is what it looks like just a couple of days ago, or right now, actually. There's no surges during the day. And so there might be a surge every now and then, once every few hours, but for the most part, it'll be like $1 surge, $5 surge, $3 surge, nothing major. I also, in June, I did a little bit of, I did $69 in Lyft. So I'm going to give you an analysis of all these things. Here's a comparison of the 2 days, right? This is a cherry picked ride right here, where you can see it's an $8 surge in Syracuse. And for 15 minutes, 3 miles, I got $19. And now a 10-minute ride, 4 miles, roughly the same area. You can see it's on this side of Syracuse, on this side of Syracuse. One was at 5 p.m., one's at 3 p.m. This is a 10-minute ride for, I made $7. So this is extremely profitable. So cherry picking is extremely profitable. But my point is the cherries have to exist. And during this time in June, there just aren't that many cherries. Let me show you another way to look at it. Look at my breakdown of earnings during that time. You can see surges during February. I had $208 in surges, and I bet you about 100, 150 of that came on that one Friday night. Where this week in June, I did $88 in surges throughout the entire week. So it's like more than twice as many surges in a lot less hours. So let me break it down for you this way. I'm going to show you the math behind it. Okay. So there was this day in June, which is just a couple days ago, about a month ago, I guess. I made $858 in fares, $219 in tips. It goes all the way down to right here. Here's the two numbers that we're talking about. So I'm going to highlight that so you can see that. Okay. So again, 1,566 versus 1,300, whatever, my revenue. But you can see now, look at my driving time. So you've got active time, online time, and my driving times from the time I left my house to the time I got home. And I had to drive in June 77 hours to make $1,500. In February, I had to drive 45 hours to make $1,300. So you can see my active time or whatever. Now look at my revenue per online hour and my revenue per active hour. The active hour is almost the same, but the reason why it drops down so much is there just aren't that many rides. I'm trying to accept as many rides as I possibly can. Where here, I can cherry pick. There's so many rides. There's surges happening. I can decline, but stay fairly active. Now this is the killer. Look how many miles I had to drive in June versus February. So my costs were way up. So my profitability was still about the same. Once everything's said and done, when I account for all my costs, my profitability is almost the exact same. But now look at my profit per driving hour. I only made $13 from the time I left my house to the time I got home. That includes car washes, breaks. I go to the gym. It's not a true $13 an hour, but it counts for taxes and all my costs and everything else. That's $13 in pure profit. But my profit during this time was $22, but you can see my profit per active hour jumps up in February. Take a look at that Friday night when I can cherry pick the best. Again, that Friday night, my revenue is $525 on that February Friday night. That's this day right here, just for those that want to see it. When it's just super profitable, this Friday night right here. Look at that, $525. That night, I drove 16 hours from the time I left my house to the time I got home. I was online 11 hours. I was active. That was really active. However, I was declining a bunch of trips. I was just sitting there declining, trying to get as much surge as possible. My revenue per online hour is $44. My revenue per active hour is $50. I only drove 322 miles, so I had $97 in costs. My profitability was $429. My profit per driving hour was $26 per online hour for $41. You can see it's just really good. Also, for those that want to see, here's what the passengers paid during those days. Rideshare take was about 39% in June and about 42% in the month of February. Um, yeah, so those are the numbers. Okay, so why does all that matter? You could say my data is good and my data is bad, whatever. My data is my data. The idea is I, as a full-time driver, to pay my bills at my house, to pay my mortgage and other stuff like that, I need to basically bring in $1,000 every single week. And sometimes it's great. For me, I drive in a college town, so when the college students are here, I can make 300, 400, $500 on a Friday night just taking a lot of rides. And it's fantastic. And there's a lot of surges, and my acceptance rate drops because I'm trying to find those surges and stay in a small, concise area. But during the summer, like today, it's so slow. I could turn the Uber app on and people are like, decline, decline. And I'm like, decline what? I get like 3 trips an hour. It's so slow. And if I need to make $1,000 in a week, I'm just having to stay online for so long. And it's great if there is a surge or for me, a reservation, but they just don't always exist. And I got to start bringing in money, which means I'm going to drive more miles. I'm going to stay online longer, but I still got to bring in $1,000. I'm a marathon runner at that time. So seasonality in each day, in each week, in each location, there's always these variables. I think it all matters because, again, Matt and Tristan are both right. Respect them both. Is one of the most profitable per hour drivers I've ever seen. He's amazing when it comes to that. But he'll be the first to tell you he doesn't have to do it. I mean, he drives, and I don't know all of his strategies, and he can talk for himself, but it's kind of like he can go for a day or two or weeks and not have to make any money doing rideshare. If the rides aren't profitable to him, he's just not going to drive. And he's in Boston, and I've seen like posts where he's got like a $30 surge. I've seen a $30 surge once or twice, maybe in the last year. So his strategy and the way he drives is great for him. And it's wonderful. I'm looking at Tristan, and again, I don't know Tristan's numbers as well as I know Matt's, the way they post them, but the way Tristan's like, I'm just going to work a volume of time and I'm going to try to maximize my revenue during that time and my profitability during that time. And he sees priority mode as an occasional value to him, basically becoming an ant, taking lower paying rides, more of them, and increasing his volume. There's ways to increase your bonuses. There's a lot of other things. I'm not saying you should take unprofitable rides. Even that $7 ride that I showed you, it's still profitable. It's not profitable as the other ride, but it's still profitable. So profit's not, it's a variable thing. And I think there's good ways to drive no matter what. See, here's the thing. You are unique. You as a rideshare driver, I'm unique. We're all unique. We are individuals with different styles. We have different needs. We have different availability. We have different cars. We drive in different cities. There's just a lot of variables. So the idea that I think I know what's right for you, or that you know what's right for me, and then we get in these weird hustles and whatever, these fights online. And I say fights because it's not really fighting. It's just dumb because we don't know what's right and what's wrong for the other person. And I understand there's an argument. If I was the cherry picker, there's a part of me that's kind of like, hey, the person going on ant mode and priority mode, they're undercutting me to some extent. Maybe because what the apps see is somebody accepting lower fares. And so they'll be able to price things less. And that's true. That's true. But it is a business. And I can't drive to please other drivers. I have to drive to please my wife. I have to drive to please my bank account. And sometimes it's really good for me to take lower paying rides because that's what exists for me at that given point in time. And I have to bring in a certain dollar amount every single week. It sucks. I wish there was $30 rides. I wish I could cherry pick and do that, but that just doesn't always exist. And so I could see both sides of it. I could see both sides of it really well. And if I was in a major city where there was massive surges and, I could sit in my house and get rides, it'd be amazing. But I have to drive. See, one of the challenges that I have, and this is not a defense of it or anything, just an explanation, but I don't live anywhere near an Uber zone. If I turn the app on at my house, there might be 3 rides a day. 3 rides. And if those are not profitable, I'd make $0. If those are not cherries, 3 offers. I have to physically get out of my house and drive somewhere. So I find it frustrating to be sitting in my car. Now I could work on my laptop. I could do a couple of things. But if I'm not making any money while I'm out of my house, you can see it's really frustrating. So you're just going to start to take the rides that are available to you. In a perfect world, Uber and Lyft would just pay us more. That world does not exist, at least not for all of us. In certain select cities, for certain drivers at certain times, yeah, maybe it does. Maybe it does. But that's not translatable across the board. So yes, cherry picking worth it, 100%. In fact, I'm going to read this quote that I got from, I uploaded all this data into Google Gemini and had them analyze everything. If you're a cherry picker, you're going to love this quote. This data analyzing the 2 weeks provides a perfect case study in what's called yield management. And that's the economic term. And I wrote a whole blog article about this, but that's not what I wanted to get into. Your week in February was highly efficient. You capitalized on high demand periods like Friday the 14th to earn a large portion of your income quickly with less driving. Cherry picking. Your June week was a grind. And God knows, oh my God, it was such a grind. You reached a similar top line number, but significantly more time on the road and dramatically more miles driven, leading to higher cost and lower true profitability per. So yes, cherry picking is amazing if it exists and it meets your goals. Again, there are drivers like me who would love to be able to cherry pick all the time, but seasonality, the times I'm available to work, the times supply and demand exists, I have to do what's called yield management. Ultimately, I have to just work more to make the same amount when I can't cherry pick. And it sucks. But if I want to bring in $1,000 in profit every single week, that's what I got to do. What do you think? Do you have thoughts toward this? I imagine most of the people that listen to this podcast are cherry pickers, and I like it. You don't have to work full time. It's a great way to make some good profitable numbers. But if you are like me and you a couple of years ago committed to doing this as a full-time gig, it's hurting. It's hard. Maybe we should do something different. I don't know. If you're an ant like me, maybe you should start to do something different. But I can understand it. If you have to make $100 a week, just get out there and pick some rides. Who cares? Just take the rides that exist and knock that sucker out. Be done with it. So there's a lot of ways to do it. I support each and every one of you. I think each of one of you are unique and special, and you should drive your way. That's what I've made 2025 all about. I've decided that I'm no longer going to give advice and tell people how to drive. I can tell you how I drive and why I do what I do. But you know what? You can drive your way. And so I'm cheering for you. I hope you're safe, healthy, and happy. Bye.